today, a Tyler man faced sentencing after a jury convicted him of 3 first-degree felonies. 64-year-old John Russell Hobbs was sentenced to 10 years in prison on each conviction, those being forgery, theft, and money laundering. Those sentences will be served concurrently or at the same time. Today, the defense called 3 character witnesses to the stand, all friends of Hobbs. One witness, Billy Hibbs, who works with Hobbs, said he was probably the most dependable person he could ever call on. Meantime, the defense closing by asking the jury to consider probation. Prosecutors say the prison sentence is proof that financial crimes are taken seriously in Smith County.
Financial crimes, in my opinion, is highly underrated as a type of crime, and we often see probation sentences and not prison sentences. So what was really important for us was trying to send an example that we care about these types of crimes. They're not victimless.
Now, Hobbs has the right to file a motion for appeal on the case, just as long as he does so within the next 30 days.
Tonight.